efforts to foster relationships between UCLA alumni and current UCLA students. So through AMP, the mentors provide students with both academic and career or even personal advice in order to develop further. And mentors and mentees can connect as often as they like in order to maintain this successful relationship.
So being in AMP is really just making the most of your mentorship. And so we wanted to give you guys some tips and tricks just to help you guys get started with being in AMP. So the first thing is to take initiative in introducing yourself and setting up a time to connect with your mentor. And when you do end up meeting with your mentor, we would like you to just get to know your mentor's professional background, but also get to know them as a person. And just remember to maintain respectful boundaries while doing so. And the key thing is to not be afraid to ask your mentor questions and just keep in touch throughout the year. And that includes sharing updates on previous conversations and just continuing to thank them for all the advice that they have to share. And it's important to stay engaged with your mentor and connect often because that's what a relationship is all about. Just like putting in that effort and making sure that it's a two-way relationship. And so that includes listening and just being attentive. And then don't be discouraged if things don't seem to be working out. Just remember that this is a relationship that takes time to develop, and our panelists here today will be able to give you plenty of more advice that will help you get started with your mentorship.
So now you guys can meet the panelists. If Natalie, Kendra, and Katie could all introduce themselves, that would be amazing.
All right. Hi, guys. I'm Natalie. I'm a senior chemistry material science major. I'm also minoring in English, and I'm really excited to speak with you all tonight.
Hi, y'all. My name is Kendra. How's everyone doing? I'm a third-year American Indian Studies major, anthro minor. Really excited to be here. So excited to tell y'all all about it. I'll pass it on to Katie.
Hi everyone, my name is Katie. I'm a third-year molecular cell and developmental biology major, and I'm super excited to see everyone here too.
Perfect. So we can get started with the panel. I'm just gonna direct a couple questions to each of you guys. And if anyone in the audience has any questions you guys would like to ask, you can just drop them in the chat. My first question goes out to Natalie and Kendra. Why and how did you guys choose your mentors? Were you already committed to the field that they were a part of, or did you just want to explore different options?
So I chose my mentor because I decided I was kind of interested in Imagineering and wanting to work there. So she actually works for Pixar, but I thought she was really interesting because she worked in a very technical role doing like construction stuff. And then she moved over to being like a project manager at Pixar. So a really big shift like that. And as you may have guessed by my major and minor combination with chemistry, material science, and English, I really love that sort of diverse experience. So I felt like she would be a really helpful mentor for me, not only because she has experience working for the Walt Disney Company, but also because she made a big pivot like that, where she went from something very technical, requires a lot of STEM background work, to something that was a lot more creative.
And then for me, coming in as a freshman is when I initially chose my mentor, and I didn't really know who to choose. I knew I was interested in the legal field. I knew I was interested in the first gen experience. So I found my mentor by looking through so many. I think I looked through like 50 profiles, and eventually I found this one person who really resonated with me. She's first gen student. She went to a really good law school that I'm really interested in, and she's currently the deputy city attorney. So if she does public litigation, I'm also really interested in that. So it kind of just clicked. It aligned with a lot of things that I wanted to do that I still want to do. So that's how I ended up choosing my mentor.
Perfect, thank you. My next question goes out to Kendra and Katie. How did you guys get past the initial hesitancy of dealing with someone so much older than you? or more experienced than you? And how did you initially connect with your mentor?
I can go first. My mentor, I have I have two right now. The one that I have from freshman year, she currently goes to medical school at UCLA, and then the mentor that I have from this year's AMP program, she goes to medical school at UC Davis. So both of my mentors are really involved in the pre-med experience, and I guess that's kind of one of the reasons why I chose them because I'm interested in the medical field. But in terms of dealing with someone who is much older, I'd say that my mentors were pretty close to me in age. They weren't like they weren't actually doctors yet, but they were still in medical school, still had experience as a student, and they recently graduated too. So, but I think that even though they were still close in age, sometimes it's kind of scary because, they have their own life going on. And one of my mentors was even going through residency. So I think that at first we set up an initial meeting and we kind of explain our goals, explain our background and things that we're looking forward to. And I think that over time, as you continue to meet with your mentor and you kind of get to know them better as a person and as a friend, you'll get over that initial scaredness of trying to get to know someone who's much older than you.
Yes, I have to agree. I found my mentor, I'm not gonna lie, I think I've told her this many times. I thought she was so intimidating. I saw her bio, I saw all the things that she had accomplished. And one of the first few things I told her was, I'm so amazed by all the work that you've done. She is at least 20 years older than me. I'm not trying to like say her age or anything like that, right? But she is a lot older than me. So I had the opposite experience of Katie. And I was very straightforward with it. I'm really amazed with what you do. I'm really interested in how you got to this position. And I genuinely do not know what to do and what the next step is and what I should do to better set myself up as a candidate for law school. She was very genuine. I think what you'll find within the AMP program is that a lot of mentors really want to help you. None of them are being forced to be here. I promise we don't do that, right? But none of them are being forced to be here. So they genuinely want to develop this relationship. I think one thing that was a little intimidating, like at first, was that she didn't respond to my first email. And I ended up having to message her through UCLA One and saying, like, hey, I'm just checking in. I wanted to know if we could set up an appointment to meet. And then from there, it kind of just kicked off and it worked out. So don't be afraid to take the first initiative. And don't be afraid to speak your mind. If you find that person amazing, if you think like, oh wow, this thing that they did is so cool, or you really want to pursue that, let them know. They would love to hear it.
That's great. Thank you. My next question is for Katie and Natalie. What are examples of interesting activities that you did with your mentor to connect with them? Do you guys have a favorite memory with your mentor?
Okay, I can go. I think for me, both of the mentors, or actually all three of the mentors that I have, we met through Zoom, especially because for me, my mentors were not in LA, so I couldn't like physically meet with them in person, but we did meet at least like every other week, I think. And I think the most interesting thing we did was over this past summer, I was able to connect with my freshman year mentor. Since freshman year, we've had like a super close relationship. Like she constantly checks up on me. I text her how she's doing. So over the summer, I was studying for the MCAT, and I think what really helped me was that we kind of just had a phone call, and all we did was just talk about her experience taking the MCAT and what I should do to prepare. And we kind of talked about life and her plans for the future. And I think it was really cool because it was one of the first times that I actually saw her as like a friend rather than someone who's like older and intimidating and that I was like scared to talk to. So just a simple phone call was even super helpful to me. And I think my favorite memory that I have with my mentor was that she she was actually applying to medical school when I was a freshman. So while we were doing this mentorship program, I was watching her do her interviews and she would tell me about them like every week. And then by the end of the year, she got into medical school. And it was super cool because I watched that whole process happen. And it was kind of like looking in the future and seeing like myself being able to do that too. So
Yeah, I agree. Some of my favorite memories with my mentor are just the random little conversations we had. Like we had one meeting where we spent about half the time just talking about TV shows we watched and would recommend to each other. So it's those little casual conversations, just getting to know them as a person and not just as like this mentor that seems so like official and formal. Like they're real people and they really want to get to know you. That's why they're your mentors. So I think just being open with them and having very casual conversations and treating them like a friend and colleague more than a mentor is really helpful to really make that mentorship extra special.
Definitely, yeah, thank you. Katie and Kendra, how frequently do you suggest each mentor should meet? And what advice do you have for those who are concerned about the time commitment of the program?
I can go. I would suggest really meeting what makes you feel most comfortable and what makes your mentor feel most comfortable. I remember when I first initially emailed my mentor, I asked her, like, oh, when are you available? Because as you are extremely busy, and like, thank you so much for making the time to come to this, I'm sure you have tons of things going on, and they who probably have already a job, they have a family, or they have external responsibilities, they also have an extremely busy schedule. So it really depends on how they can accommodate you and how you can accommodate them. Definitely don't feel pressured to meet with them like every day or every week just because somebody around you is meeting their mentor every week. It's definitely a personal thing. Personally, I meet with my mentor every 2 weeks unless a holiday falls on it, a birthday, things happen. Last week, my mentor closed her home, like she bought a home. And so we didn't meet that week because she wanted to celebrate with her family. So that's totally okay. Meet whenever and whatever makes you feel most comfortable. And I think that's the key to the most successful relationships.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with Kendra. It's really up to you and your mentor. For example, my freshman year, when I had my mentor, because she was still in her gap year, so she had a lot of time. And I was also a freshman, so I had a lot of time and not that many commitments. So we met like every 2 weeks. But then last year, my sophomore year, my mentor, she was going through residency. And so she was super, super busy. And because of her schedule, we rarely met. But I think the most important thing is to kind of keep or have like a schedule in mind for when you want to meet with your mentor. And that's definitely a conversation that you should have at your initial meeting. Right now, my mentor for this year, I think we plan to meet like every month at least, unless I have some type of questions or things that I need to ask her. But yeah, it's definitely up to you and your mentor. And don't be too afraid about the time commitment for this program. This program is meant to help you and you really get what you take out of it. So whatever your time commitment is, depending on you and your mentor, I think it should be up to the both of you guys to decide how often you want to meet.
Perfect, yeah. Natalie and Kendra, how do you think being a part of AMP has helped you grow not only academically, but also personally?
So I think my mentor has been really helpful with like just helping me ask questions I wouldn't think to ask of myself and reflect on, what it is I really want to do and be. And so I think that's been super helpful. She's helped me to like kind of explore opportunities I wouldn't have thought about because in having conversations with her and us getting to know each other better, she was like, your personality seems like it would fit really well in this role. Have you ever thought about it? And so that inspired me to like look at jobs in a different role than I had never thought about before. So that's one thing. And then also, your mentor was a student at UCLA too. And so they have a lot of insight to offer just about being a student and doing things outside of academics. Like when I was looking for an apartment, my mentor was really helpful with, extra tips about apartment life and how to deal with that. So yeah, they definitely have a lot of insight to offer outside of just, your resume, your interviews and all of that sort of a thing.
I 100% agree with Natalie. My mentor has been, I'm extremely privileged to say that she's basically like my second mom. Anything I need, I've like, even to the point where I've said like, oh man, like I'm really missing home cooked meals. And this lady invited me over to her house to meet her family. Like, she made me a home cooked meal. Given she lives pretty close by, and I understand that's not the case for everybody, but she has been there for me for really anything I need, from apartment choosing to recommending me for the Law Fellows program to telling me, like, oh, when I was in law school or when I was in undergrad, I didn't know this, but you should maybe volunteer at a judge's office, or maybe apply to be a clerk, and you apply to be a clerk during this time. And just really using what they know to really pave your path. I remember one conversation that we had. She said, Kendra, I really want to tell you what I would have done differently. And it doesn't mean you have to do it or you have to keep it in mind. I just want to share my experience. So at the end of the day, they really, really enjoy sharing their experience, and it has helped a ton. So loved it. I love her.
That's awesome. Yeah. Natalie and Katie, if you guys ever felt any sort of friction or lack of connection with your mentor at one point, how did you resolve it?
I can go. I think that this is a really good question because my mentor from last year, I had a really difficult time connecting with her. And I think it's just because of how busy she was and her schedule. But some of the things that I did I would just reach out to her and email her and ask her any like questions or concerns that I had at the time. And I would then schedule a meeting with her just so that we could like meet up and catch up. And I think it's also important to kind of voice your concerns about this like lack of connection. If you feel like you're not connecting with your mentor as often as you need to, then definitely bring it up to them and try to schedule like some type of routinely meeting so that you can still stay in touch and not feel like they're not a part of your life anymore, I think. But yeah.
Definitely, like one of the most important things you can do is to just keep updating your mentor. Even like my mentor from last year, I told her I was getting a new mentor this year, but I still wanted to check in with her and meet her every now and again, meet with her every now and again. So I emailed her, and it was tough finding a time to meet, but I just kept emailing her like, hey, how about this week? What about this day? And oh, by the way, I'm doing this now. And just, still be very friendly and consistent with your communication. And that helps a lot, even if you're not able to meet face to face, either via Zoom or in person. Just email correspondence can also be super, super helpful.
Definitely, yeah. Thank you. Kendra and Natalie, what did you guys get out of the program, and what opportunities and lessons did you learn from your mentor that you didn't expect?
Man, I have gotten so many opportunities out of this program. The last externship I did this summer actually was because of this program. My mentor has a friend who happens to be a judge in my hometown. They ended up going to law school together, and they hadn't connected in like 10 years, but they saw each other at a conference. She's like, man, I have a student, she's my mentee, and she would love to intern with you. While I was at home, given I live in a very small town, so the chances of that happening were very slim, and somehow they happened. But yes, so I, given time, the pandemic season, made externships and finding internships or any really opportunities really hard because a lot of places weren't hiring or giving any opportunities, especially undergraduates. So I got hooked up. I'm not gonna lie. That was pretty awesome. But the other thing is there's so many programs that you may or may not know about. I research a lot, especially about the legal field, but somehow there's like the little things that are somehow hidden and secret. And she's like told me all of them. I have like a huge spreadsheet. She's connected me to so many people, emails that like I just get that I'm CC'd in. It's like, oh, hi, blank, or hi, Judge blank. This is my mentee, and she would love to meet you. She would love to have a conversation about what type of law you do. I've talked to judges that are in the bankruptcy field and the tax field and the immigration field. I didn't even know there was that many law fields. So it's all very, very exciting.
Yeah, my mentor has been super helpful, like I mentioned before, about helping with finding roles for me that I didn't think about. But she also was so helpful with my resume. Like the feedback she gave me on my resume was so good. And when I applied to the current job I'm working right now on campus, I think a lot of it came from her feedback and knowing how to highlight my skills the right way for that job. And also, at one point, I was looking at internships with a really big pharmaceutical company, and she happened to know someone who worked there that she went to school with and connected me with them so that I could get more insight on the company and get help with from him as well. So it's not just your mentor that you're connecting with at the time. They have their own network and they will gladly set you up with a lot of those people if you're putting in the effort as well.
Definitely. And Katie, if you had an answer for this as well, go for it. I'd love to hear it.
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna say that, especially for me as a pre-med, I think that it was super scary coming in my freshman year because you just finished college applications and then now all of a sudden you're starting to think about med school applications and like everything that you have to do for that. So my mentor my freshman year was so helpful. She helped me like read my club apps. She told me like all like the steps, like the timeline of what a medical, like a pre-med student should be doing. And so she kind of just got my head straight. And I was super stressed, especially my freshman year, because I would be applying to clubs and getting rejected left and right. So she was kind of there to tell me that like being a pre-med doesn't mean that it's like a checklist of things that you have to check off. And she's kind of the one who told me to look for clubs and orgs that I was super passionate about, like ASC, and other orgs that I was doing. And she even got me a research opportunity this year just because I reached out to her to check up on her, and she kind of asked me if there's anything I was looking for, and she got me set up in a research lab because of the connections that she had. So yeah, definitely. It's been super helpful having her as a mentor.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you guys. For Katie and Kendra, what recommendations do you guys have for how a student can bond with their mentor amid a virtual environment? And did you guys still bond with your mentors when we were all virtual last year?
I think, like I said earlier, it really depends on what you're interested in. Don't forget that this is your mentor relationship. So the things that you're interested in, they might or may not be interested in. Let's say like I'm interested in baking, but you guys are not remotely interested in baking. Do not try to bond with your mentor over something that you're not passionate about because they will be able to tell. I think Natalie mentioned it. It's from the most random conversations that good topics come about. I love Hallmark movies. And it was right around Christmas time. And my mentor asked me, like, oh, what are your plans? And I literally said, oh, I'm going to be in bed all day watching Hallmark movies. And that started a whole like 40-minute conversation about ranking our favorite Hallmark movies because it turns out she also loves them. Like, when would I have ever guessed that that was the topic of conversation that would bond us? Never. But it totally like ended up working out. So really, I'm sure that there's so many amazing qualities to each and every one of you, and your mentors probably have the exact same, and they're probably interested in the same thing. Everybody really loves TV, unless one of you doesn't love TV, and then disregard my previous. But everybody loves TV, everybody loves food. Even asking them like, oh, when you were at UCLA, what has been your favorite place you've ever eaten at? And that could just like start a whole series of conversations. So it's really the small things that will lead to the bigger things.
Yeah, I think going off of what Kendra said, I had a similar conversation with my mentor too. I think I just asked her like, what were your favorite things to do when you were a student at UCLA? And she like gave me so many of these options. And even though she wasn't actually physically here, so we couldn't like hang out that way, it still started a great conversation. And I think just finding the little things that both you and your mentor are interested in and treating your mentor as like a friend and as a person rather than just someone who's mentoring you and like helping you professionally. I think that's probably one of the best ways that you can really bond. Um, so like during your meetings, every time after you talk about professional things, you can ask your mentor about his or her life and like what are they up to, what are their interests, and kind of just treat them like a friend, like Kendra and Natalie have been talking about.
Definitely. And lastly, this question goes out to all of you. What is the biggest piece of advice that you have for new mentees as they begin this journey?
I would say don't be afraid to ask. I know, I mean, if any of you are like me, I'm sure a lot of people are, you don't want to feel like you're burdening someone by asking them to do something for you. But at the same time, these mentors volunteered to help you. They want to help you. They just may not know how. So do not be afraid to ask for help. If you want help with your resume, ask. If you want to see if they have connections at a certain company or in a certain field or something like that, just ask. You never know what may come of it. So don't be afraid to try.
Yeah, definitely. I was gonna say the exact same thing. I often feel that I'm like burdening my mentor every time I reach out to her because I don't want to bother her if she's busy or something. But honestly, the mentors are there to help you, and you chose your mentor and you sent them a mentor request and they accepted. So take advantage of this opportunity that you have to have a mentor in the AMP program. And really, anytime you have any questions, if it's just checking up on them or trying to maintain that connection, like set up a meeting and just do it because your mentor will definitely be there to help you.
Honestly, 100% agree with what Nat and Katie have just said. Literally, do not be afraid of bugging them too many times. Obviously, do not spam them. But if for any reason you feel like, oh man, like they didn't respond to my last email and that was like 2 or 3 days ago or a week ago or whatever amount of time, chances are they probably didn't see it. I guarantee they're not ignoring you on purpose. The other thing is, at the end of the day, these people are just people and they were in your very shoes a couple or if not several years ago. So at some point, they also did not know what to do, or they did not know how to get to where they are now, but somebody helped guide them. So they're just kind of returning favor, or even just trying to offer what they might or may not have had. So please do not be afraid of asking them, like, hey, I don't know how to do research. I don't know how to reach out to someone that I really want to reach out to. I don't know how to talk to my professor. Chances are they probably been there and they will totally, completely guide you, and they'll be so happy doing it.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much. If anyone in the audience has any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. There is this one from Ali. What did you guys talk about during your first meeting and how did you prepare?
So for before my first meeting, I went through my mentor's UCLA One and LinkedIn profiles and just tried to really get a good grasp of what her background is and what her experience is, and come up with a few questions I wanted to ask her based off of that. And then I also went into it thinking about what I wanted to establish from that first meeting about how often we would meet, what goals I wanted to get out of it, what goals my mentor might want to get out of it, and just making sure we made space for those discussions in that first meeting. So yeah, just background research and just general prep for what you want your year to look like.
I will agree. I think the first meeting is really all about setting those boundaries and saying, like, oh, for this quarter, I can meet at so and so time from this like hour or this half an hour or 15-minute intervals. And then it's also all about just whatever you want the relationship to be. If you want it to be something very formal, definitely go in as prepared as you want. Ask them like tens of questions, and I'm sure you're going to have more questions as more information comes up. But originally, freshman, I didn't know that I like had to prepare for a phone call. I will be very honest. I didn't know where to prepare. I had like stalked her on LinkedIn, and that's about it. And I'll be honest, my mentor does not keep up with LinkedIn. All that was there was like her school and like what position she has now, given she's the Santa Monica DA. So that's a great position, but I didn't know anything about it. So one of the first few questions that I asked, I was like, so what do you do on a day-to-day basis? And I remember her just like laughing. I was like, man, I have never been asked that question so plain and simple. And there's so much that I could tell you about. And from that moment on, it really just established a really fun and casual relationship. It really depends on where you want to head it to go or lead it to go, and just go from there.
Yeah, same for me. I also researched my mentor's background. But for me, I had like a lot of concerns coming into my mentor mentee meetings. So I would like write it down on a piece of paper, like questions that I wanted to ask her or things that I was concerned about. and kind of get that off of my chest. But I also remember that thinking that I felt like I had to run the meeting almost, but I don't think that you guys have to think that. I think that it's a mentor-mentee relationship for a reason. So you don't have to feel like you're holding a meeting and you have to run this meeting with your mentor or the other way around. It's kind of a two-way relationship. So whatever your mentor wants to learn about you, how she or he can best help you, and same goes for you, like what you're looking to get out of this mentor relationship. I think those are some of the most important things to establish during your first meeting.
Definitely. Thank you guys so much. If there aren't any more questions, then I'm going to hand it over to Jenna to wrap it up. But thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you all so much again for spending your evening with us and hearing from our lovely panelists. Just as a quick conclusion, like I said, we are the committee that is behind the Alumni Mentor Program. So if you ever have any questions or you need any help, I have dropped the email for the Alumni Mentor Program in the chat. The general things to keep in mind, as our panelists so eloquently elaborated on, I will just try to summarize, but basically, mentorships aren't a scary thing, and it's all meant to benefit you and to help you. These mentors signed up to mentor you. They want to do this. They want to help you. And so everything just keep that in mind. They're not scary people. They're there to help you. They were in your shoes when reaching out to mentors. Keep an open mind. It's great to have someone that's in your desired career field, but sometimes, if you're not sure what you want to do, or maybe someone's in a different field, that can still be very beneficial. And everyone has something that they can help you with. And, every single relationship and connection that you make during these years is very, very important. So just keep that in mind. And then for every meeting, I would just say, show up with goals, show up with intentions. In your welcome packet, we sent you a mentorship agreement. I encourage that you go through that with your mentor and talk about what each of your goals are for the relationship, and keep that in mind in every meeting, and always kind of circle back to that in your head to make sure that you're really, as Katie said, you get out of the program what you put into the program. And just keep that in mind, like be consistent, be open, have conversations, ask questions. You don't have to meet with your mentor like every week, but try to have some consistent form of communication as busy as you might get. It's really good to just keep that going, even if it's just an email. And yeah, just don't be afraid to ask questions. As Kendra also said, keep the relationship. It can be as professional or as personal as you want. Your mentors are, very successful people, but they're also human, and they can help you with a lot of things other than just school, if that's what you want your relationship to be like. It's all completely up to you. But yeah, just keep an open mind, and this relationship could turn into something really, really beneficial and wonderful, as you've seen from 3 of our panelists who have had amazing mentors. So yeah, I really encourage you to take advantage of this resource and reach out if you have any questions. And hopefully tonight gave you a little bit of advice and you're feeling a little bit less scared, and you're ready to go out there and talk to your mentors and just like make the most of this experience. But yeah, just some things to look out for us. We're going to be sending you newsletters throughout the year with challenges, ways to engage, and we're also going to be having events that we're going to be hosting. Beginning next year, we'll have a mix of virtual and in-person events to help you guys connect with your mentors if they're not physically close to you in LA. And also hopefully with a potential, if your mentor is close, to be able to meet with them in person is sort of the goals for this year as the COVID restrictions maybe lighten up. But yeah, just keep that in mind. Get excited, get out there and go make those connections and hopefully build amazing relationships with your mentors. Yeah, thanks again from me and my committee. If you have any questions, you can stick around if you want to ask us questions. But yeah, thank you so much, everyone. I hope you had a great night and happy week 8, and good luck with midterms and finals coming up. And I hope you'll have a lovely Thanksgiving next week.